The biggest difference that you will notice between the Hoka Speedgoat 7 and the Kiprun Kipsummit Max that you will notice is the midsole foam. You've got an all-new supercritical EVA with the Speedgoat 7 and a Fast Tech Plus ATPU with the Kipsummit Max. I'm okay, by the way. Kicked a rock, took a little spill within the first minute of this review here. I was thinking about my initial line there and also focusing on my camera settings a little bit, looking at the screen. Anyway, all good. No damage to me or my gear. Let's get into this full A/B test run between the Speedgoat 7 and the Kipsummit Max. I've recently run in both of these shoes here, so no need for any refresher segments. Going full A/B, one shoe on each foot, straight out of the gate today. Supercritical EVA was the big ticket update with the new Speedgoat 7. A couple of other things which I'll get into, including the fit specifically for me. But Supercritical EVA is a compound or formula that most runners are used to. The ATPU midsole foam, certainly something newer or newish in the trail market. It is bouncy, it is energetic, it seems to be quite durable, but the feel, something you may not be used to out on the trails. You notice I did not mention stability there when it comes to that ATPU foam. That is something we're gonna get into in a little bit, but first, let's go through the specs here. Kipsummit Max comes in at a measured 36 at the heel, giving 3630 total stack, 6 mil drop. Weight in my US 10 EU 43.5 comes in at an even 10 ounces, 284 grams. I will note on the sizing there that 43.5 seems a little bit low relative to US 10. Speedgoat 7 in my US 10 EU 44 comes in at a touch heavier 10.2 ounces, 288 grams. Most of my US 10s typically do tend to correspond to an EU 44, so something to pay attention to depending on which side of the pond you are on. All right, bear with me now. I'm gonna give you 3 different stack measurements for the Speedgoat 7. I put these two shoes on side by side before I left the house, and I was under the assumption that they were very close or within 1 millimeter of each other, and that was the case based on my initial measurements. But in-house, my Speedgoat 7 tended to feel a little bit lower on my right foot compared to the Max on my left. So I did go ahead and remeasure, and I now have 34 millimeters at the heel with the Speedgoat 7 compared to 36, and I did just double check that. Same as my initial measurement with the Kipsummit Max. Hoka gives a spec of 40-35, 5 mil drop. So going back to my initial measurement, 37, I measured 3 mil lower. And today at 34, I'm 6 mil lower at the heel compared to the spec. I do tend to notice varying amounts of compression over time. Generally with EVA midsoles, supercritical ones tend to be a little bit better. Also of note with the Speedgoat 7, they did revert, so to speak, to a regular EVA insole, whereas a lot of recent models have been having supercritical insole included. Also worth noting, I did put 30 miles straight out of the box in back-to-back runs in my Speedgoat 7 review video. At this point, I've probably got about equal miles in both shoes. The longest I've gone with the Max is a 17 miler, but a few mid-distance runs, probably around 50 to 70 miles in both of these models here. Thought it was important to point out the difference between that spec stack and the actual stack that I am running in today. 40 to 34 is quite a difference there. So if you're looking at this model expecting pretty much high borderline max stack underfoot, 40 millimeters, definitely a lot. I'm really not running in that amount of foam underfoot today after, say, 50 to 70 miles. It's looking more and feeling more in the mid-range at this point. Kipsummit Max, on the other hand, I believe the spec was only 1 mil off for my 36 measurement at the heel. And I did confirm today that I am still measuring 36 millimeters at the heel. So perhaps that does say something about ATPU midsole foams in general. compared to EVA. It's hard to go back in time and judge the feel of the Speedgoat 7 based on what I'm feeling out here today. Compared to the Max, definitely feeling closer to the ground here. That might have still been the case given the nature of the foam itself from the start, but again, I don't have a fresh pair of the Speedgoat 7. Can't really go back and think about the difference as to how it felt in those initial runs compared to today. But based on those pure numbers alone, I would expect a little bit of compression, of course. Also, along with that, more ground feel. Definitely noticing that compared to the Max. It does not feel like a firm ride at this point by any means, but it is a stark contrast to the ATPU on my left shoe. That one feels way softer. This one definitely firmer relative to that foam. Also of note, the Max does include an ATPU insole. It's a little bit smaller, kind of fitted in there without the edging of your typical insole, but I love the feel of it. It gives that nice soft feel underfoot without the absorptive qualities of, say, Ortholite. I am gonna do a wet test later. Here's some water here. I'm gonna find water later. It's a little bit glued down in the front, but the heel is not, so I could kind of peel it up and get a feel for it. Nice and puffy, nice and soft, whereas, again, Speedgoat 7 with traditional EVA, past experience, I've seen those insoles pancake out quite a bit, and definitely gonna lose at least a mil from the insole, maybe even more depending on the thickness. All right, now that we've talked midsoles, insoles, durability, compression, I do want to be clear. I do like the ride of both shoes. I, in fact, love the ride of both of these shoes, but perhaps for different contexts. These are both definitely top picks, top values in that mid-range cushion trail shoes. Versatile. I do think one of these shoes is more versatile. We'll get to that later though. But clear value here with both of these models. These are both on my shelf in rotation for everyday miles, different types of runs whenever I get a chance to take them out. In terms of fit and sizing, I think they're both about right at a US 10. Again, small discrepancy in EU sizing, but at a half size up from what I consider my true to size. I think the sizing at a 10 is accurate for me. I have heard some chatter, read some comments that people were finding the Speedgoat 7 toe box to be a little bit on the tighter side. I don't think that's the case. I think this is one of their better toe boxes, actually. I get no foot squeezing at all. Perhaps those commenters are finding a little bit of low volume. I could see that being the case. But for me, squeezing at the forefoot was always the big issue with the Speedgoat uppers. That kind of squeezy tension is non-existent in this model here for me, and that is really what it's all about with the improved 7 fit. They do also offer a wide version, so perhaps that is helpful, and I have seen a comment where somebody found the wide version was perfect fit for them. Kipsummit Max, on the other hand, does feel a little bit squeezy, a little bit low volume, I would say, compared to the Speedgoat 7. Especially a little tight at the front of the toes compared to a typical US 10, and notably compared to the Kipsummit Race. I'll just briefly mention again that I have both models in a US 10 EU 43.5, and the Race seems noticeably larger, especially up front by the toes. By the end of my longest run in the Max 17 miler, I did notice towards the end, especially I was working my way downhill, it just felt like my toes were being squeezed together. I didn't get any blisters or anything, but it was just noticeable to me. Just to be on the safe side, I went with the Sidus T-Free sock today. That has a separate big toe area, and really awesome if you get blisters specifically between the big toe and the next one. I've been a huge fan of Sidus socks, and I'm gonna have a little bit of a refresher coming in for test in the near future, including a new ultralight sock. So be on the lookout for that. By the way, now's a good time to check out my website, sign up for my newsletter so you don't miss any updates and see what I have in for test. I will often answer questions about what I'm running in, what I'm testing in before I'm able to get the full reviews out. So go ahead there, hit pause, check out www.humblerunning.com, sign up real quick, and then come right back. Both shoes quite flexible underfoot, at least for mid-stack trail shoes. No problem climbing up here. No restriction, no stiffness underfoot. There is more squish, more conformity to the ground with the softer Kiprun midsole though. Notice it a little bit climbing up as you're putting power into the ball of the foot and the big toe. Just lose a touch of power into the foam compared to Speedgoat 7 with the relatively firmer and still responsive supercritical EVA. Again, I'm coming back to that more direct connection to the ground with the Speedgoat. That is an aspect. If you are running in rocky technical terrain, probably going to be preferable to have more of that feel, less of that compression underfoot. All right, let's pick up right there talking about deforming of the midsole, not necessarily in a bad way, but just how the midsole flexes underneath your foot. The shoe as a whole, if you take a look at this Kipsummit Max, something I noticed as I'm putting power into the ball of my foot, certainly climbing, certainly faster running, you can see this medial edge of the forefoot. It does tend to compress right under the ball of my foot behind the big toe and kind of like angle out a little bit. Of course, this is absorbing impact, but it is a little bit of deformity, can lead to a little bit of foot movement and just, you know, a little bounce, a little instability on the trail. Rotating over to the Speedgoat 7, you do have a narrower platform. I'll give the platform specs in a moment as I head back down, but it's not as wide. The foam is totally different here. Supercritical EVA, still soft, still quite responsive, but coming back to this one, it is just very soft and just as responsive, if not more. Really bounces back there. But as I'm putting force into that Speedgoat 7, as I'm compressing there, not as much, very little, and that gives it a nice and stable feel. I don't feel like my foot or the shoe is deforming under each ground strike, especially under the forefoot, as I'm trying to kind of maneuver off of that as I'm running faster and kind of perhaps dancing around in technical terrain. It makes the Kipsummit Max a little bit different to handle that technical terrain in the same way, because as you can see, if I'm getting on edge there, it's kind of deforming and get a little bit of that wobble on top of that ATPU midsole. Probably different terrain, especially now that I have this measured a little bit lower, 34 millimeters here. You're that little bit closer to the ground, makes it even more or even a better technical running shoe here. Certainly not as high, a little lower than this one, and not as high as the 40 mil spec would seem to indicate it would be. Got both shoes off here. Check the flex first. Speedgoat 7. No stiffness at all. There's no plate in either of these shoes. Very flexible here, of course. Saw it in my full review. Also good twisting here, but again, it doesn't feel loose underfoot with the foam in the same way as the ATPU does. Even though this is quite flexible, quite adaptable to the ground underfoot, the foam is not squishing and compressing in the same way as the Kiprun shoe is. Flexibility here, even more flexible. Same probably visual amount of flex that you can see, but I have to put just less force into it. It's very easy to flex. Twisting is pretty similar here again, but in comparison to that one, perhaps this is a better test here. You can see how as I push into it, as if you were stepping on a rock or something uneven, you could see how much this adapts underfoot. Let's move to the Speedgoat 7. You have some of that, but it's definitely, I have to put more force to kind of get this contouring out of it, whereas that one just kind of compresses and bends a lot easier. Yeah, this one goes right under there. Quick peek around the uppers. Both very nice tongues, but in different ways. This one, nice and high for Hoka here. They really fix this up here. You don't have a short tongue here. No problems with coverage, with the laces kind of hitting over the top of the tongue, but it is quite thin. You can see it wraps well all around the foot, but very thin material here. You have the padding right where the lace knot goes. I have no issues, again, because the fit is so good, no issues with this being a thinner tongue. Quick peek around the outside here. Both of the heel padding setups in these shoes are very similar. Steady, kind of consistent padding all around the heel, U-shaped, no missing areas. Again, with the flexibility of this shoe, even in the heel a bit, no issues with heel lockdown. Similar with the Kiprun shoe around the heel, Nice ring, very cushy there. No issues with heel hold. Again, with the flex, I don't have any problems there. Tongue is a bit different, very well padded, but it is very thick. You can see how much it actually wraps around the foot even. This is a quite wide tongue, perhaps the widest I've ever seen, and it wraps like all the way around the side of the foot, which is very interesting here that there's so much material in this one and then so little in the Speedgoat. I think it goes to show with this one being a touch higher weight, 10.2, 10.0 here, with a more seemingly stripped down minimal upper, certainly in the tongue, probably in a lot of the other materials around the front here. This one being so thick and still coming in at a lighter weight, it kind of shows that the ATPU foam here, you're just saving a ton of weight with that foam. Breathability is another concern with these uppers. This one is quite thick. The material sticker here, highly durable in fact, but you have this kind of TPU or whatever rand around here, which is not breathable at all, and that just covers a lot of the area of the shoe. Air test, it's kind of moderate here, but again, you can see there's not too much area. We're going to see similar with the Speedgoat 7, but this is not a highly breathable shoe. We'll see how it is. Maybe I'll jump in the waterfall here when I'm done with this close-up. But definitely breathability might be lacking compared to some other more open meshes with kind of less of these overlays around. Speedgoat 7, something I've looked about, I think in a comparison review. This part right here, it's a little bit of a rigid type material. It's a single kind of plasticky knit material here. Breathability is pretty minimal all in this area here, the bumper and this whole black section carrying on to this overlay here. You really have kind of minimal, even more so, areas of ventilation compared to the Kiprun shoe. You've got the vamp area here, which is pretty small, and then these side sections in between. There's a couple of underlays under there spanning this way, right here and over here, and this one over here. But between those is your kind of ventilation vents, so to speak, but they are pretty small. So if you have concerns about breathability, I would say the Kiprun shoe and Speedgoat 7 might not be your best picks. Probably a little bit more with this shoe, but only very slightly. Check out my T-Freeze here. These are great if you only have blisters in this area, or maybe you just have issues with kind of your big toe. A lot of times when my feet get squeezed together, maybe at the end of a run, as I was talking about earlier, I'll notice it more in this section here. So if you don't want to go the full toe sock route, because a lot of shoes, especially if you have kind of a tighter toe box, the Injinji socks or creeper socks, toe socks in general, they just take up more volume and they just, you know, don't fit right in lower volume toe boxes. So this is a good option if you want to have some kind of protection between the toes, especially in this area. And that is an area for me where I get issues. So I love these socks. Quick note on the Max here. These came out of the box laced up to this second upper eyelid here, and I didn't notice it first of all, and I went running in them, and then I only noticed it after my first 1 or 2 runs, and I just kept it like that because it doesn't feel like it's high at all. In fact, taking a look at this shoe, it seems like the front upper eyelet is pretty far forward. I talked about this a little bit with some of the new Adidas shoes. It just seems like that front eyelet is kind of far, and the opening from the heel to that eyelet is a little bit large. So these came like this. I don't know if they all do, but straight out of the box they came laced up to this one, but it doesn't feel as high as some of the other like kind of second row eyelets here. So I just leave it this way. It's not a lace lock. I'm just going again to that second eyelid here, but I don't notice any pressure from that row being any higher. It just feels like it's kind of sits where a normal first eyelet would be in other shoes. And again, with this tongue being so super thick, even if it was kind of a little bit higher, just a touch, I wouldn't notice it at all. Speedgoat 7 here again. You can see the lace knot hitting right on the padded section of this very high, nice height tongue here. Thank you, Hoka. But this front eyelet here just seems to be in the more natural spot. This opening doesn't seem as wide as this opening in the Max here. So I've got this one laced just to the first one, and again with the flexibility, no issues with heel hold at all. I didn't not even think about lace locking this shoe, just perfect here. And you could see how high the tongue comes all around. I think some of you will probably want to import this tongue into a few of your other Hoka models. full submersion there. One thing I could definitely notice is that the water came into the Kipsummit Max a lot quicker than the Speedgoat 7. I believe this ventilation zone here, again, that more open mesh, just a little bigger around the toe box here with the Speedgoat 7. This is very closed up, as I talked about with breathability, and it seemed to take a little bit longer for the water to get above there and get into my foot. So perhaps you might have some protection from kind of lower areas of water, but once it gets in, we'll see if it gets out easier in the Speedgoat 7 or works its way out of the Kipsummit Max. Both feeling pretty soaked at the moment. We'll see. Both shoes feeling quite squishy, quite waterlogged at the moment. Just came out of that water though, so still early. Ground platforms here, pretty similar between the two shoes. 118.80, 293 with the Speedgoat 7. 121.88, 98 with the Kipsummit Max. Nice wide platform, fitting of models designed with high cushion mid to max stack in mind. A little bit wider with the Max, which I think makes sense. These are of course not within the same model lineup, but just the touch all around. 5 mil wider front to back. That will be noticeable, but it probably depends on how fast you're running, how technical you're running. I can definitely feel the wider base on the Max here. Speedgoat, relatively narrower, not narrower than say other trail models, lighter weight shoes, but compared to this one, I feel like you definitely easily find better foot placements with the Speedgoat 7. About to put that stability to the test here with a bit of a windy downhill. Both shoes actually feeling really good here, relatively stable. As you would imagine, I feel definitely better with the Speedgoat 7. Feels more connected with my foot. It does feel like I'm riding or surfing a little bit on top of that softer ATPU Kiprun midsole here. But as others have noted, a little bit lesser volume in the Kipsummit Max. I've also noted myself that it does feel like the upper's trying to strap your foot really onto that ATPU midsole for stability, foot security. And that does seem the case. That's going to be an advantage when you're kind of running quicker, twisty turning, certainly throwing rocks and technical terrain in the mix. With the foam being soft as it is, better to have the foot a little more secure as opposed to being looser. I do think that upper does do the job, actually. I do feel, even though still a bit more bouncy on my left foot, a little more unstable, I do feel pretty well strapped onto the shoe itself. So feeling a little bit more confidence than I would have thought in the Kiprun shoe. But again, I am having to think about it in that shoe. Speedgoat 7, actually not even crossing my mind as I wind my way down here. It's just there. I'm just throwing my right foot around, really not thinking about it too much at all. And that's a good thing. My legs are feeling better, by the way. I had a little hip injury I've been trying to get over, and wow, this is one of my most positive runs in a little while. Quick little wet check field test here. Speedgoat 7 does feel like it dried out quicker. Both feet still feel wet. It's been about maybe 15 minutes or so since I totally soaked them. Feeling drier in my right foot. Feeling a little wetter for sure with the Kipsummit Max. Could be due to the insole, not sure exactly. Could be those TPU rands around the outside, just like not letting the water squish out. It's not bad. I don't feel water sloshing around as I do in some other shoes that are really bad. So slight edge in the wet test of the Speedgoat 7. I'm not going to put rankings on any of my comparisons here. If you're new to the channel, I don't typically do that. I like to kind of see where each shoe lands in relation to its own specific strengths and weaknesses. Yes, I'm putting these two shoes up against each other, A-B, but as I alluded to from the very beginning, I think they're slightly different shoes, both great, love them both, but I'm just not gonna put numbers on my rankings. That just seems like it would be a little bit weird and unfair to me. Also, it wouldn't paint the full picture of the performance and, you know, aspects of each shoe that I really like. But I will give certain edges to each shoe. Certainly foothold edge goes to Speedgoat 7, again, with honorable mention to the Kipsummit Max in that for the softness of the shoe, it is pretty good, the foothold. Not as loose or disconnected as I would have thought, but objectively, you're gonna get more foothold with the Speedgoat 7. In turn, the edge in cushion and softness, comfort feel underfoot definitely goes to the Kipsummit Max. If you're looking for a softer feel, and that's your number one, I just want to feel soft underfoot without packing in, still feel responsive. Pitfalls of reviewing on the run. I might have kicked that one. Not sure. Skidded over here. Hit kind of hard, but a little blood. Doing it for the content here. All right, where were we there? Falls tend to come in bunches. I should have known better. Should have known to be more careful. Took that first spill in the complete smoothness right out of the parking lot. And now this one bombed down that kind of windy section, got to the flats here, started talking away, and then another spill. Softness edge, again, goes to the Kipsummit Max. If you want that soft feel, you want that cushion, you're gonna get a bit of it with Speedgoat 7. Still mid-stack there. Love the supercritical EVA update here. Definitely well needed for a Speedgoat update compared to compression molded EVAs of the past. But in terms of softness, cushion, comfort underfoot, it just can't touch the softness and comfort of the ATPU in the Kiprun shoe. It feels soft, yet also rebounds, returns energy just as good. Not as much as the Kipsummit Race. That shoe feels totally different with the carbon fiber plate. It does kind of firm up the feel of the same ATPU foam with the plate sandwiched in there. This one doesn't have that pop to it, but still the response though, with, again, enhanced softness here. The deformity I was looking at in my close-up, kind of feel that from time to time, but not on the run. You don't feel that in the sense of pancaking out under the forefoot. Just more like a sense of contouring of the shoe over the ground as opposed to flattening out and feeling firmer over the course of a long run. Both shoes do have Vibram Mega Grip underfoot. You have deeper 5mm lugs with the Speedgoat 7. Also have those traction lug nubbies there. There are more lugs overall in the Speedgoat 7 too, which kind of gives it a smoother feel underfoot. Hard to say if it's just the effect of the lugs relative to the Kipsummit Max. Kipsummit Max has 4mm lugs underfoot, just a touch shorter, wider space, more spread out. I think both shoes will do okay in mud, but Max will probably do better, shed mud easier with that wider spacing of the lugs in the Kiprun shoe. Probably goes hand in hand with the softer feel of the midsole, just allowing it to flex and contour a bit more underfoot, not restricting the kind of movement or, again, contouring of the midsole to stuff underneath it. Well, now that I'm all bloodied up here, probably gonna have to mention this shirt here. This is from Foehn, Foehn there. Cortez PowerTech Delta shirt made of recycled polyester / raw organic material. I believe a bit of Tencel in the mix here. Feels really nice, really soft. Love a light colored shirt now that sun is coming out, temps are heating up. Feels nice and airy. It is a $100 shirt. I can't go around telling everyone to pay $100 for a shirt, but if you're on the market for a $100 shirt, the fabric on this one has a feel to it that is, I want to say, just luxurious almost. It has like a ribbing to it that is just super soft, and that Polartec Power Dry, it wicks really well. Tested one earlier run before got it dirty and bloodied up here, but it was definitely nice and dry by the end of the run. In other shirts where I'd be kind of like soaked and wet, especially in the lower back when I'm wearing a vest, this one just remained nice and airy throughout. And even when I did sweat a little bit after I kind of lightened up in easier sections of the run, maybe heading a bit downhill, it just dried up really quick. So give this one a look at wearfoehn.com. Foehn is the warm air in the Alps as it crosses over a mountain top or ridge, something like that. I have to look up the pronunciation. Also got the Relace Polartec Power Dry short here. Has a ton of pockets here. I think you can hold 8 gels in here. 2 side pockets, 1 zip in the rear, and there's interior little gel sleeves in the front and back. 5-inch outer short length here, 6.5 on the liner, not a brief. Always a big fan of that. Can't do brief liners for long runs. Too much chafing for me. I did not fully load up these pants today. There's actually nothing in them, so I'm gonna be following up on these with a more full review. Just wanted to take the shirt and pants, just want to take the shirt and short combo out for a quick feel out test run on sizing. I'm a size medium, by the way, in both of them, and fit is correct for me. 5'10", 140, slim-ish runner's build, and again, size medium. I did double back a bit here. Want to hit some mileage for today, but talk about my final conclusions on the way back down and up and around. I will note, first of all, that I don't notice a drastic difference in feel, or at least the effect of running in 2 different shoes underfoot for, say, it's going to be about 10 to 12 miles here today. I have talked about some of the key differences between the shoes today, but generally speaking, they're within the same class. It hasn't been problematic at all. Again, running this far in 2 different shoes, not drastically different shoes underfoot, just slight differences, fit and feel. As a concluding point, I will have to give the versatility edge to the Speedgoat 7. Just the foam feels more connected, the fit of the shoe feels more dialed, at least for my foot. It feels like you could handle easy running, kind of moderate running, even its fair share of technical running, especially now that I've got it measured at 34 at the heel, putting it at 34.29. That's really in line with a lot of mid-stack shoes that you would think of as being versatile, all mountain types of models. Not really that super high stack max models that you're seeing out a lot on the market. You also saw me flexing both shoes. You'll know that I like that feel when it's getting technical, when it's getting moderate, when I have to dance my way around things. Love the feel of both of those shoes. But again, in terms of versatility, the Speedgoat with the relatively firmer yet still responsive ride gets that edge for me. But again, pure comfort is, I know, a big factor for many runners. You're gonna get that edge with the Kipsummit Max. Just that go all day feeling of that ATPU midsole. Again, I have the same heel stack measurement as I recorded when I got these shoes, so perhaps durability of this foam will be better than, say, the supercritical now EVA of the Speedgoat 7. That may give you more distance, more consistent feel over the life of the shoes, and perhaps even over the course of a single longer distance run. Moving on to aspects of upper comfort, putting aside breathability and drainability, those are their own kind of separate categories. The fit of the upper, I think my edge goes to the Speedgoat 7. Seems like a little bit more volume in the toe box, I get that little bit of squeeziness, lesser volume in the Kipsummit Max, but again, they have to go that route, I believe, with the softer, bouncier midsole underfoot. Both are very comfortable. I was talking about comfort underfoot, giving the edge to the Max. Comfort of both uppers. I get no sense, no niggle of irritation in any part of my foot with either shoe. Ankles, heels, Achilles, front of the toe box, big toe side, any of that. I would say just make sure you're sized correctly. Again, Speedgoat has a wide model, and the Max, you may need to go relatively a little higher up just because a little tighter in the toe box there, a little lower volume. But if you do have the right size, I think you're going to be totally fine comfort-wise with your feet inside both of these models. So that's all for now. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I have full videos on both of these models. Links are in the description below. Full comparison video with the Speedgoat 7. I do want to catch up on some A/B comparisons as there's so many good models coming out these days. I thought when I originally got this Kipsummit Max that it was kind of like the next generation or what the Speedgoat should be. But the Speedgoat 7 did come out in the meantime. They did enhance the foam and also, of course, the upper, which I really love now. So perhaps the Speedgoat 7 and Hoka did end up giving us what we wanted, or at least what I wanted in a Speedgoat update. So I'm gonna have to table that aspect of calling the Kipsummit Max the quote-unquote next-gen Speedgoat, but still does have that ATPU foam here. Let me know what other comparisons you would like to see. Again, check out links in the description below. Speedgoat 7 from Hoka. Kipsummit Max is now available in the US at Decathlon's US website. $150 on the Max. Great value there. Speedgoat 7 at $165 for an established and known quantity. Also a great value. At those price points, I don't think you could go wrong with either shoe, especially the Kiprun shoe. $150. Quite a value, especially giving that super advanced ATPU foam. Speedgoat 7 again, upgraded across the board, fit and midsole for $165. Can't beat that either. Foehn apparel here, $499, at least pretty durable. I definitely, landed on my rib. I've got this feed flask here. Oh, look at that, cracked. I landed, I think, right on it. I feel it right here where the cap was, and then skidded over here. So no tears in the shirt, but I did get a little extra ventilation in my shorts. Not a problem there. You can see it's next to the other ventilation hole, so that'll give me some more airflow at least. Thanks for tuning in once again. Hoka, great update with the Speedgoat 7. Kiprun is for real with the Max and also the Kipsummit race models. Check out the website www.humblerunning.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Don't miss any update. Check out links in the description below to both of these models. Your purchases through my affiliate links does help support Humble Running. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time out on the trails.